everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Jasmine. She's one of our wonderful fellows who is learning about digital advocacy, and she's doing a great work. Her work has reached over millions of views, so congratulations to Jasmine. Okay, so like she said, my name is Brenda Bastian. I will be moderating today's panel. It's called Reclaiming Our Narrative, Reflecting Latino Realities in Traditional and Social Media. I currently serve as the Chief Content Officer at LULAC National in Washington, D.C., where I lead our efforts to tell people-centered stories that challenge stereotypes, expose injustice, and spotlight the power of Latino communities across the country. Latinos have always been storytellers, but today we're shaping our own narratives with more reach and more creativity than ever. From cooking videos to comedy to music, political commentary, and cultural storytelling, we're using social media to speak for ourselves loudly, vividly, and without apologies. Our visibility has grown both in moments of joy and in moments of protest. But despite our growing presence online, traditional media still lags behind. Latinos make up 20% of the US population, yet we represent just 6% of lead roles in Hollywood and 13% of newsroom staff, and fewer than 3% of media executives. At the same time, our communities drive what's now considered the 5th largest economy in the world. We are powerful, but we are still too underrepresented and misrepresented from the mainstream media, of course. Today's conversation is about shifting that reality. It's about reclaiming media spaces and to reflect the real issues that we face, like immigration, health, housing, education, and justice, and centering voices that have long been excluded or flattened into tropes. At this time, we are joined by 3 extraordinary leaders who are pushing that shift forward in meaningful and creative ways. So please welcome Carlos Eduardo Espina. Carlos is a nonprofit director and activist who has become one of the most influential digital voices on immigrant rights. With over 13 million followers on TikTok alone, Carlos uses social media to demystify immigration law, educate communities on their rights, and advocate fiercely for humane policy reform. His work proves that legal knowledge, when made accessible, can be a tool of resistance. And now we have Rafael Agustin. Rafa is the CEO of the Latino Film Institute, home to the Youth Cinema Project, which mentors thousands of young storytellers in public schools across California. Rafa is also a TV writer, best known for his work on the hit show Jane the Virgin. Yes, Jane the Virgin, it's one of my favorite shows. Under his leadership, the Latino Film Institute is not just changing Hollywood, it's building the pipeline that will determine what Hollywood looks like in the coming generations. And finally, we have Memo Torres. Memo is a multimedia journalist and director of partnerships at LA Taco, one of the most groundbreaking local media outlets in the country. LA Taco covers the intersections of food, culture, gentrification, and community resistance in Los Angeles with a raw grassroots perspective. Memo's storytelling captures everyday Latino life in its full capacity, whether it's exposing immigration injustice or documenting the city's best taco trucks. If you need recommendations, he's the guy to go to. Each of these speakers represents a different slice of the media ecosystem, and each is working to ensure that our communities are represented with nuance, truth, and dignity. But representation alone isn't enough. Visibility doesn't always equal power, and in some cases can even reinforce the very systems we're trying to dismantle. So to begin our conversation, let's talk about the risks. And please, whoever calls dibs on the conversation, you get it. What happens when we're visible, but we're not in control of our own narrative? Can that kind of exposure actually do more harm than good? And with that, I turn it over to our speakers.
Damn, that's deep.
Are these on?
Yeah, check. Here we go.
Check.
Well, you're the most famous one here. You want to start?
Oh, okay. So the question was about, I guess, when your life is out there, your work is out there, and how people can perceive it. I think most of us who have done stuff on social media, or even those who don't use it to make content but are still online, you are opening yourself up to a lot of things, good things and bad things. So, over the years, I've learned how to deal with it, but, conspiracy theories now with AI, like fake videos, stuff like that. And I think it can be a roadblock, but at the same time, it gives you an opportunity to essentially, fight back. A lot of people, when they get attacked for one reason or another, they feel like, I have to shy away or I have to stop doing what I'm doing. But we have to realize that you are in control of your narrative on social media. And that's the great thing about it. You don't have to go through an intermediary or someone else. You can just say, hey, this person's saying this about me, and I can respond. So if I actually made a lot of content, I'll just grab what people are saying about me, and I'll just respond to them. And a lot of times, people actually enjoy that because it creates some sort of narrative, some sort of discussion. So I think, as content creators, we shouldn't shy away from controversy and, back and forth. I think it can be productive, and it can be a good opportunity to teach people about, what you actually are, what you actually stand for, and the work that you're doing. So I've learned to live with it. I think it's one of the hardest things to get adjusted to when you start making content and people have opinions about everything and they don't even know you, but it's just part of the process. And just like we have, opinions of people we see on television that we've never met, it's kind of the same on social media. People are bound to have good and bad opinions about you, but it's just part of the process and you have to learn to live with it. And also realize that you don't have to make everyone happy, especially, in this political climate. I remember last year I would get a lot of hate comments. They'd be like, you're just trying to scare people. Donald Trump's not going to do all these horrible things, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, time will prove me right. And essentially it did. Now all the comments are like, damn, I guess you were right. So, when you know what you stand for and what you believe in, you shouldn't have to, I want to please everyone. You know that the truth will come out eventually. And then that should give you comfort to keep going. So that's my perspective.
How many I told you so videos have you made?
Well, I think they speak for themselves now. It's almost like you don't even have to put it in people's face. You just kind of, hey, this is going on. And every time, something happens, some sort of right is taken away or some sort of process is undone that people said was impossible or couldn't be done, but now it is being done. It's just the facts speak for themselves. And that's the beautiful thing, about being prepared, because I think one of the most important things for myself as a content creator is actually understanding what I'm talking about. I have a college degree, I have a law degree, and all these things have really helped me to analyze things. So when you see, a political candidate who's saying things they want to do, and you can kind of analyze it in a way that perhaps otherwise I wouldn't be able to, and that gives me the certainty that I can say certain things that I know will be right. They are right now, and they will be right in the future. So I'm not worried about what other people think.
That's what's up. I'll go next and then toss it over to you. LULAC, thank you so much for having us. This is an awesome conversation to be having. And a special congratulations and shout out to Brenda for the social media presence that LULAC now has on a national level. Because I feel like you've always done the great work, but until you are in social media and people see you, now everyone knows what y'all are doing, and that's because of you. So congratulations to Brenda. So for myself, I work in the film and TV space, and in mass media and traditional media, what we're dealing with, from your question, your original question, is what in academia they call symbolic annihilation. Now, symbolic annihilation is what happens when a group of people are underrepresented or completely ignored from mass media. So what's the problem with that? Well, at best, symbolic annihilation results in a young immigrant boy like myself who didn't see himself represented in film or TV and journalism and books and theater, so I don't grow up feeling like I'm part of the fabric of this nation. That's at best, but at worst, symbolic annihilation results in a mass murderer like the one from El Paso, Texas, who killed innocent Americans because he saw them as illegals or invaders, right? And that's truly what we're fighting against in mass media. We're fighting the symbolic annihilation of our entire community. And not to be too heavy, but I'll kick it over to Memo, who, LA Taco, you guys have really, really started representing our community in a great way.
Thanks. Yeah, so from mass murder and symbolic annihilation, I'll try to liven it up a little bit. I'm with LA Taco. We're a hyper-local publication here in Los Angeles. We do street-level coverage. We started off as a weed, taco, and graffiti website, or a blog, that eventually when, in 2018, the LA Weekly, which was one of the last alternative publications in Los Angeles covering like alternative news, got bought out by a billionaire, a Trumper, and he gutted the whole website. That's when LA Taco decided to relaunch as a publication because exactly what you were talking about. How do you fill that void? In LA is such a huge place, and if you talk to anybody that's outside of LA, their whole vision of LA is everything that's like West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, Wilshire, Malibu, Nothing out of that is considered LA. And in fact, that whole strip, most of that isn't even LA. They're their own cities. Santa Monica's its own city, Beverly Hills, West Hollywood. So what do we try to do at LA Taco is our whole mission is to try to represent all of LA, all the underserved communities. And we think that's important. And it's a hard struggle. But what we've found is there is a need for that. Anytime we mention a specific community, no matter how small that community is, the whole area around it just loves it. We get a great response to our articles. We try to feature stories of our immigrant families, street vendors. Food is a great gateway, so we use food a lot for that. But also to talk about what's going on in communities that major media doesn't, usually cover. When you have major media go out, like New York Times, sometimes Eater, sometimes LA Times, and cover these communities, they have a tendency to try to exotify, the communities and the food. Oh, this goat stew is just, the richness of exotic spices from the heavens, and they're talking about birria, it's like, come on, guys, chill. But yeah, it's important. It's important that we in LA tell our own stories, and I think one of the best things we do at LA Taco is we find voices in communities. And even though they're not journalists, they haven't ran before, we see something in them and we'll reach out to them and be like, hey, we want you to write about this thing that you're talking about in your social media post or somewhere. And coach them through it and kind of get more people to feel comfortable writing about their communities. And also, one of the biggest changes we did recently is to be more seen, is that we've kind of been changing the game of journalism in a way. Usually journalism it used to be papers, right? You would go buy a paper. And then from there, it was a website. Now most people aren't going from websites. Nobody's buying papers. Now everybody wants their content through social media, TikTok, Instagram. Is Facebook still relevant? I don't know. But yeah, so we started just kind of going social media first, putting our content out there, which is a big risk because it's out of our control. We control our website. Nobody censors what we say. Like, we don't give a shit. We'll talk about anything. It don't fucking matter, Don't censor us. Say our voices. Say whatever you want. Let's speak truth to power, And on Instagram, they can always censor you, and they do.
Thank you, everyone. And touching back on journalism, right? We do have this idea that the people writing the print journals are the ones that know more than any of us, right? But like I mentioned earlier, only about 13% of Latinos are in these newsrooms, and the vast majority of them are not decision makers. And having come from one of the largest newsrooms in France, where I previously worked, I can tell you that they're not thinking about Latinos. Because when I pitch stories about Latinos, they're like, that's too divisive. That's too political. That's too brown, right? So, having said that, and having joined the LULAC, now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be brown AF, okay? I'm going to say our truth. I also grew up in LA. I also have immigrant parents. And one of them, I can tell you, the day that my mother got her citizenship, I bawled because I stopped fearing ICE, right? Those realities are our realities, and no one understands it but us. And no one is gonna tell that story for you in the correct way, because they don't know it. Like, pobrecitos, no saben, right? So it is our duty to tell those stories. Who cares about humility? Take up space, be loud, be brown, and be proud of it, okay? Yes, our stories can be difficult, and sometimes we want to bury them. But by doing so, we're robbing the world, the reality that we live, right? So please, if you learn anything from today, it is that your voice matters. Your story matters regardless of your background, regardless of education level, regardless of the dialect you speak, regardless if you don't speak English, okay? Your story matters. Okay, moving on. Now, touching on Latinos, young Latinos especially, or any Latino that wants to change their career, and they want to enter media, but they don't see a clear pathway in. What's one thing you wish that someone had told you earlier in your journey, and what can we do now to make those doors easier to open for others?
I guess we'll just go in the same order again. We'll just do that for every question. Well, I think what has been the most important for me to learn, there is like this perception, right, that like social media is its own career path, and then like, there's like traditional career paths, but I think they go hand in hand. And I say that because I always get the comment, oh, you went to undergraduate, you went to law school, and now you work as a TikToker. Like, well, that doesn't make any sense. You're not using your degrees. But every day that I make a video, every video that I make, I am using my degrees and my knowledge in a way. It's just not in the traditional sense. For example, when I see, videos of ICE raids going on, or just anything in general, and I'm able to get that, break it down, and analyze it, I'm using skills that I learned, through higher education, through college, through law school. When the White House puts out an executive order with all this legal language, I wouldn't be able to understand it the way I do if I hadn't gone to law school. So yes, I'm not, practicing my career in the traditional sense, but I think all that education that I've had, whether it be formal education or, education in other sorts, because it's not all about just formal education, it's about learning every single day, but all of that, whether I realize it or don't realize it, is still being used in all of my videos. So all that to say, I've met attorneys, I've met doctors, I've met people who, astronauts, whatever it can be, they're not making content on social media. That doesn't mean because they're making TikToks, they're not doctors anymore, they're not, engineers, or they're not lawyers anymore. They're still that career and they're more. So I see more social media not as a career path in itself, but a complement to whatever you want to do, whether that be nonprofit work, whether that be legal work, whether that be anything else. So as far as getting started on it, I don't think you have to wait to, I have to decide between making content or doing this. I think you can do both. When I was in law school, I would go to class, do my homework, and then spend like 5 hours after in my free time just making videos all day, and you're able to do those things at the same time. So that's what I think social media has really changed, where you don't have to take a formal decision. You can just start making content, and if people like what you're saying, they identify with it, they resonate with it, then you'll be able to grow on social media, and then, you know, that'll take you to places that you never even imagined. So yeah, just always keep that in mind, and, you know, realize that everything you're doing every single day, that's going to inform the work that you do on social media and beyond, and that's a good thing.
That's dope. I have a micro and macro answer to your question. So on the macro level, Hollywood is an industry that runs on story, which means the most important people in Hollywood are the storytellers. Regardless of what your producers, agents, managers, agents try to convince you of. And that's what I wish I would have known when I was younger, that as the writer, I hold all the power because I'm the world builder that no one else can do. Obviously, the system is rigged against us, right? And people refuse to distribute your projects unless they control your IP, but you're a writer, you create it, you have the IP. And if you get to a level like, let's say, Ryan Coogler, he is now being able to negotiate that he owns his own movie. That's insane, but that's truly what we're moving towards. The industry is shrinking. There's so much consolidation. There's so many mergers happening, and it's getting smaller and smaller, which is why so many people are leaving our industry, unfortunately. But they still need a lot of film and TVs and content. So no matter what, they're always gonna need to feed the beast. So if you can learn how to create your own projects, if you can learn how to produce your own projects, how to fund your own projects, you are gonna be winning in the future. I think right now the opportunity is truly independent film, and we haven't had a boom like this since like the 90s, when Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez blew up in the scene. Because the mergers, Hollywood is shrinking, but everyone still needs the same amount of content and films and TV shows, so people are now doing them independently. So, and that's what we do best. We start more businesses than other communities. Like, we're more entrepreneurial than other communities. This industry is ours for the taking if we want it. The only thing is, like, when I talk to my tias and tios or cousins, and everyone's like, I want to work in Hollywood and I want to be an actor. You know how much money there is to be made in Hollywood in the business side? I want to start hearing my family members say, I want to be the executive, I want to be the president, I want to be the manager, the producer. Like, the second we start being in those positions of power, everything is going to change. Because as Brenda shared, it's not that they don't like mean well, they just don't understand who we are, right? And those are the two ways of answering that question.
All right, I guess it's my turn. So the question for me was like, how do you encourage people to open doors or get into spaces that are hard to get to? You repeat it?
So what's one thing someone told you earlier in your career, in your journey, and what can we do now to make those doors open much easier for others?
I would say this. How many of you guys have ever thought about doing something and just hold yourself back? Right? What holds yourself back? You know, shout out some answers. What holds yourself back?
I love the one who said family.
You need a new family. No, I'm kidding. Fear, doubt, the feeling that you're not ready, you can't handle, you know, maybe you're not good enough, right? Those are usually the common ones. You know, you're afraid you're not going to be good enough. You're afraid you're going to get rejected. I had a great teacher in high school. He was this Latino teacher. He was the only, I think he was like one of 3 Latino teachers and the only one that cared about any Latinos on campus. And he would always pull me in, and I remember it was time to apply for colleges, and my counselor, my white counselor, was like, where do you want to go? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know shit about colleges or universities. I was like, I heard about Harvard and Yale through the movies. And he just laughed at me. Ha, 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 no. Community college, da-da-da. He's like, you're going to, maybe LULAC. I'm like, all right. So then my teacher knew, and he like calls me up, and he's like, all right, so what did that, I won't say the word, but what did he say, you know? I'm like, well, this is, I said, like, you know what? Fuck that fool. Just like that, he says, fuck that fool. Where do you want to go? He's like, look, bring me applications. So I brought him applications. He helped me fill them out. And I sent them. And I remember he told me one thing. He's like, why aren't you going to fill these out? I'm like, I don't know. Maybe, he said, I'm not good enough. My grades aren't good enough. I'm not going to get anywhere. He's like, what's the worst thing you have to lose? Time? You're going to waste it anyways. It's going to fly by you. Just try. Just try. Just shoot your shot. You'll never know. Sure enough, I got rejected by every university. Except one. I got rejected by one. I got accepted by one university. Turned out to be Berkeley. So, thank you. Loyola. Yeah. So it's a story I always share to people because, it might be a long shot, but, there's still a long shot. And as long as that long shot exists, you should take it. And nobody's ever going to open the door for you. You have to step up. You have to go knocking. You have to find a way to pry it open. And if you think that you're not ready, you're not good enough, you're right. You're not ready and you're not good enough. But that's why you need to try. Because the only way you're going to be ready and good enough is by doing the work, doing the practice, putting yourself out there over and over and over until you learn and you get it. And that's what it takes. It takes a lot of rejections, There's the baseball analogy. The best baseball hitters only hit the ball like 1/3 of the time. So remember that.
One thing that I wish someone had told me earlier in my journey, and it's something that I say to my fellows, my team, almost on a daily basis, is that the only one holding you back is yourself. You being afraid of failing is holding you back. You comparing yourself to others is holding you back. You asking yourself, what would X authority figure do? That's holding you back. Because you're not X authority figure, you are your own person. And if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. You have to embrace the mistakes that you make. You have to hope that you make mistakes. Because if you don't make these mistakes, you're not gonna grow. And once you accept that you make mistakes, and once you accept that it's inevitable, it opens up everything. It really helps you focus on yourself and helps you succeed in what you do. You have to just go for it, okay? I also had an advisor. I don't know if you guys know Avid. Avid. Yeah, I was an Avid student. And I wanted to continue Avid after middle school. And I said, I want to go to college. And my advisor said, I don't think so. It's not for you. And then I also graduated from UCLA. So don't listen to the people that are holding you back. A lot of people kind of get off on being like, I want to bring this person down. Fuck those people. You do what you gotta do to center yourself and elevate yourself, because no one is going to do it for you. No one. Because they're trying to do it for themselves. At the end of the day, everyone, including all of us, are just figuring things out as we go along. Like, that's our journey. Everyone is figuring it out. Not even like our grandparents know what they're doing. Like, even though they're older than us, they know better because they also made mistakes and they learned from it, right? But please embrace making mistakes and just know that it's inevitable. And when you do make a mistake, you're never gonna forget that mistake. And that's gonna mold you into who you are in the future. And you will be better for it. And now, touching on media infrastructure, it still very much depends on validation from white institutions, such as grants, awards. You have to be recognized to be validated, right? So how do we break that dependency and build networks that are self-sustaining, community-funded, and rooted in our own values?
Great question, by the way. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Well, so I can only speak for social media, but I think what social media has really allowed, which is so amazing, is that you're able to reach so many people with such a small budget or no budget at all. So when I started social media, I just had my iPhone and I had my ring light. And I remember, when the New York Times did a profile on me, they flew to my house in Texas, or my parents' house, and they were like, oh, okay, now can we go to your studio? I was like, I don't have a studio, I have a ring light, and like it's in the corner of my room. And they're like, what do you mean you're reaching millions of people every day and this is all you have? And I'm like, yeah, this is all I need, because I think we've reached a time where now what matters more than your, high production and all this super professional gear and all that is, how you're connecting with people, how you're expressing yourself, and how you make people feel. I mean, we've even seen it now during this administration. Some of the most, viral content and best work of journalism is people just walking down the street, seeing something going on, pulling out their phone and just recording it. They're not waiting to say, oh, hold up, let me pull out this super fancy camera and put all these lights. It's just about being in the moment, being timely, and being intentional about whatever it is that you're doing. All that to say, a lot of people get held back, going back to, what holds you back. People are like, oh, I don't have, the budget to do this, or I don't have this to do this. When, yes, that depending what kind of work you want to do, obviously I can't go and make a full-on podcast and whatever if I don't have the certain lights and whatever, but there are things you can do and you can start with that don't require much of anything. It just requires, having good intentions, and more than anything, having a vision of what you want to do, and, seeing from other people who are doing stuff that is successful and that you think that you kind of can do yourself as well, and just adopt those models, and then obviously find your own style, and then that way you can reach so many people without having to depend on, other people funding you. And even as a content creator now, thankfully, I'm in a position where I'm able to basically, self-fund with the videos that I make, with collaborations and stuff like that. So I don't have to, respond to anyone. If I want to go on a video and say whatever the hell I want to say, I can say it, because no one's going to pull funding from me and say, hey, no, we're paying you to say this or say that. And so I've even seen a lot of like journalists who are like working in traditional media spaces who will reach out to me and be like, hey, I want to start my social media stuff because I want to, say things that maybe I can't say, or do stuff in a certain way that I can't do it right now. And a lot of people are making that jump. So I think for all of you to incorporate it in whatever area it is that you're doing is just such a powerful thing, knowing that really the only tool you need is in your pocket already, and then, obviously having that preparation and that mindset and that vision to do something with it. So yeah, you can start today, and it's easy to say now. I guess it's not that hard, but it really is not that hard. It's just about being persistent and being dedicated to it, so you can do it.
And just to touch on that, about the equipment, it's a barrier for a lot of people. They think they can't make contents because they don't have the right equipment, right? That's false. A huge part of my job and my journey is to hack algorithms. Algorithms do not like fancy cameras, just so you know, okay? The fancier the camera, the less likely it'll like it. So it won't even push your content. So social media especially really prefers phones. So point and shoot and make your content.
I would just add that if you're not invited to the table, you have to build your own table, right? That's essentially what needs to happen. And that is so much easier for film, right? Like we could do that in film, right? The two genres that most get made or get greenlit are horror movies and faith-based movies, because those are audiences that are cultivated and easy to reach. The most untapped market, the biggest like pot of gold that exists, is the Latino community. And all it takes is for us to get organized, and we're gonna be so ahead of the game. I personally believe, and this is just my belief, don't attack me, I think we're 20 years behind everyone else. Like, I think we're in our black exploitation phase of our film and TV writing and creation. I think we have to start thinking light years ahead to leapfrog and get to where we need to be. We just have to do epic shit that people want to come see. There was this false narrative that In the Heights didn't bring out Latinos to the theaters, and that's why it flopped. And that's not true. If you read all the data, Latinos came out in droves. You know who didn't come out? Everyone else. So then the thing is, how do we create work that everyone wants to see? And that's the key. How do we promote and create material for our community without people going like, oh, that's not me. We are American, right? And in Mexico, I'm not Latino, I'm Mexican. In Ecuador, I'm not Latino, I'm Ecuadorian. In Puerto Rico, blah, blah, blah. But in the United States, we're all Latinos. So to me, being a Latino is a uniquely American experience, and we just have to redefine what that means because we've already done it in music. Oh my God, our community is the most important when it comes to music. We can do the same shift in film and TV. I know we can. We just have to start working and writing accordingly and organizing like all things. But again, we're 20 years behind even understanding our political power. You know what I mean? And this is the beauty about LULAC and why we decided to come here, because you all have realized this and you all have been fighting for this. But we need to get everyone else outside of the convention center to jump on this bus.
So, yes, echoing what you guys have said, I mean, there's things that I was going to repeat, but or I was going to say they're repetitions of what they're saying. But yeah, you have to build your own spaces. I mean, yeah, you can go and ask for a seat at the table, but more than likely they won't give it to you. Or they'll put you at the kiddie table on the side, like, oh, let's let the Latino group over there. Not really part of this. We'll give you something separate. You know, we won't include you in this coverage. We'll do something specific for you, right? Which is not inclusive. And it doesn't take a lot of money, like you were saying. I mean, literally at LA Taco, we all started with our phones and laptops, you know? And most of the content we did, yeah, sometimes we try to like do some fancy video work, like you're saying, and that shit would flop, and I would just do something real quick on my phone, and that shit would blow up. But I think that the most important thing that we can all tell you is you're all storytellers. And not just storytellers, you're information givers, right? And I think that's the two most important things that we can do in our community is tell stories, our stories, and keep us informed. And at LA Taco, one of the biggest things that people tell us is like, oh, if you were a nonprofit, we could get you millions of dollars. We can get you like $3 million right now if you were a nonprofit. But we refuse to go the nonprofit route, and no diss to nonprofits. It's just in nonprofit communities, those $3 million are going to be tied to certain, contingencies. They can be taken away and ripped from you at any moment, and then you have all the staff, and then boom, you're gone, right? Not only that, when you're independent, it's a lot harder. You're broke. Like, we're broke. We could barely afford tacos, you know? It's a hard life, but we're dedicated to the mission of, like, being solely independent. Nobody tells us what we can say, what stories we can tell, and what information we can give you. So, yeah, tarrasquache, raw dog in the streets, that's what we'll call it over there. Like, that's what we do, but that's also what's most effective. And last year, I don't think people really appreciated local journalism, local media, until last year when we had to furlough because we ran out of money. And we had to furlough the small staff that we have. We had like 6 people. And then LA all of a sudden came out was like, no, we need LA Taco. And like in a span of like one day, we got like 2,000 new members. We got all kinds of donations, and we were just right back on our feet, which was a testament to LA not realizing that if, a small little publication like LA Taco could go, that's a big voice for them. And we've done so much for the community that I think they've responded and appreciate that too. And
during the ICE raids, LA Taco was leading all reporting, and big national outlets are looking to them for what's going on in the street. So congratulations.
Thank you, man. Thank you. And I it's cool that we've gotten all kinds of international attention, from everywhere, national attention, because we're leading the information and getting the ICE information out there to people the best. We're outperforming everybody. It sucks that a little taco website is the one that has to do it, right? But it's also a testament as to why sometimes you have to step in and do it yourself, because nobody else is going to. Not the ones that are supposed to be doing that. Like, why are we leading something that everybody else should be doing, right? And just remember that. If you don't do it yourself, who's going to do it, right? So that's what we're doing. We're filling that void. And I think it's also a testament that people now realize the importance of local journalism, because local journalism is the closest to the streets, to the mom and pops, to what's going on. corporate media, like literally we have like Fox News right now on my phone. Like, can I get this footage? Can I get the contacts of these people? Like, nah, fuck you guys. So, anyways, yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so we have like literally like 2 minutes left. So rapid fire question, top of your head, just answer, okay? Question for Carlos. Many like online advocates struggle with burnout and backlash. What really keeps you motivated to keep going?
I don't know. I think I'm just kind of crazy. Like I can't stop. Like it's one of those things where you're so passionate about what you do that like I don't even, not that I can't take a day off. I don't want to take a day off because I enjoy putting content out there. I enjoy, you know, helping people. I enjoy informing people, interacting with people. All that to say, I think the most important advice I can give to a young person. I mean, pretty young myself. I'm 26, but a few years back, I was in your position going to LULAC conferences and events. Is just find something that you're really passionate about, and it's going to be very hard to burn out. Like, I speak to a lot of people, like, oh, I'm just so burnt out from it. And yeah, I get, like, you know, sad and depressed with everything going on, but I wouldn't call it being burnt out because I'd much rather do what I'm doing right now and being in the position that I'm in than doing anything else with my life. So I think if you find something that you're truly passionate about and you're doing it for the right reasons, everything else will kind of fall in line. You know, when I started social media, like I said, with a ring light in my room, I had no resources, I had no funding, no nothing, but I just enjoyed it. And then eventually all those things started to happen naturally without me even having to really go out and look for it because, like I said, if you're passionate, you put the energy, you put the work in, things will fall in place. So just find what that passion is for yourself and then pues dale con todo.
Okay, Rafa, you have been in Hollywood for a while, right? So
Calling me old? Like this is
I tried not to
Just
say
met,
that. I'm sorry. But okay, so you've been there in Hollywood. You know, you're a Hollywood guy here. What has really changed in the past 10 years? And what barriers for Latinos still remain, in your opinion?
Well, I think we touched on it. I actually think there was more diversity in the 50s than there is today when we were accustomed to seeing a Latino being the lead role in the biggest show on television, I Love Lucy, Desi Arnaz. So I think we're actually going backwards because there's so much more content, but not about us. And now with this new administration, everyone's so scared to greenlight anything that's about like our community. The only thing I will say is think about if you actually do want to work in film and TV, that when you're writing these stories, you're not writing a Latino story or a Latina story, right? Because Latino is not a genre. A Latino is like the icing on the cake. It's the cultural specificity that makes your story special. But the genre is murder mystery. The genre is sci-fi. The genre is rom-com. And when I speak to a lot of young writers, they always tell me, oh, I have this brilliant like Latino comedy. I was like, you already lost. And you're barely starting the game and you're already lost. So just keep that in mind. And the other thing I wanted to share with you all is I'm a formerly undocumented American. And my father came to this country having been a pediatric surgeon to work at a car wash in LA. And he always told me this piece of advice, going back to what advice we give. He always said you have to maintain 2 full-time jobs to survive in the United States. That was my father's immigrant mentality. But guess what? I always kept 2 full-time jobs, and that's what allows me to be where I am today. This gentleman was a lawyer, and then he became an influencer. I was an executive director of a nonprofit, and then I became a writer of every major television. Likewise with Memo. Always remember that you can do this work. People are doing it, and they get paid very well. But to get here, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hard work, but no one works harder than our community. So I have no doubt that y'all can make it.
Yeah, I was a landscaper until recently. Now I'm full-time journalist. So yeah, way happier with this choice.
Okay, Memo. Your reporting really covers everything from like housing struggles to like ICE raids like on the field. What's your process for finding stories that reflect the community honestly? Like in your opinion, what makes a story worth telling in your eyes?
That's like the hardest question ever. People always ask us like, what's a good LA taco story? And they'll send us pictures and stuff. And I don't know, it's kind of like a gut feeling in a way. I think our stories that cover several areas are good stories, whether it be like the intersectionality of politics, local economies, culture, and that's putting it in a very dry sense, I know. I don't know if I can give you an example, but I had a story once where I pulled over and there was this lady selling burritos out of a cooler. They're like the Juarez style burritos in foil. And I remember, because I mentioned I'm a landscaper, growing up in a gardening family, those were like the burritos we'd have for lunch, frijol, carnita, little mole, wrapped up in a thermos. And I remember I was like, oh man, I haven't had these in like a long time. So I remember I was like eating them and I started talking to the lady and I was like, where are you from? Anyways, like a long story short, both her and her husband were disabled because they worked construction. She worked she had a disability. She was a house cleaner. Now they couldn't afford that. They were struggling with rent increases because their neighborhood was getting gentrified. And the resort was to go and sell burritos. Her husband would do it somewhere else and somebody else would do it here. And that's how they were doing it to get by. So for me, it was this interesting story of such a food that nobody really thinks about. It's such a basic little food, burritos de frijoles, But there was so much packed in there of like what they were going through, what the neighborhood was going through, their story, how they got screwed over by their jobs because they didn't have protections because they were immigrants, and just kind of that story. And that story blew up simply for the fact that the least thing I thought about wasn't all the stories of her and what they're dealing with. It was just because of the burritos. And people really love the burritos. So I always tell people food is such a great way to introduce people to topics that are going on in the community. You know what I mean? To real stories that people are going through, and the struggles that people go through and see out there. So I always like to use that as an example. So food is a good gateway to introduce people to real shit that's going on in the hood.
When you were speaking, it reminded me of something real quick. I know a lot of y'all are probably in college or going to college, and I think what you're mentioning is the reason it's so important to always stay connected to your community. And I say this because many of you maybe will go to colleges far away from your communities, and you'll be in very different environments. But it's always just so important to stay connected to the people you came from, because you start seeing the world in a different way. And sometimes I've seen it a lot, people whose only intention is I want to do well so I can get as far away as I can from where I came from and just forget about all the problems I had growing up. But I think we need to have the opposite mentality. We need to get an education, we need to do well so we can go back to those communities and actually be able to serve people, and always trying to see the world from the eyes of the people you are trying to serve. So if you're a doctor, thinking about it, hey, what would my patients feel? If you're a teacher, what would my students feel? If you're an attorney, what would my clients feel? And I think you'll be able to develop that gut feeling that you're mentioning. So people today, like, how do you know what videos to make? You're making like 10, 20 videos a day. It's like, I don't know, I just know. I'll see something and I automatically know this is what my audience wants to see. A really quick example of this, the other day I was driving from Houston, Texas to College Station. On the way there, I was just driving. I didn't plan on making any videos, and I saw like 10 highway patrols like on the highway. And I remembered, I'm like, hey, recently the governor gave these people the ability to work as ICE agents. So I went home and I said, hey, I just got off the road. I saw 10, agents. This is what you should know if you encounter one of them. And that video did like 2-3 million views because I was just driving, but I have that gut feeling where I see this and say, hey, this is something my community should know. So if you go through your life thinking and seeing things in the eyes of the people you're helping, the people you're serving, you're never going to run out of ideas. You're never going to run out of stuff to do because you'll always be so in touch with the people you care about. So, yeah.
Okay, so that's all the time that we have for today. Give it up to our panelists. Thank you so much. I really hope you enjoyed the talk, so thank you for joining us. You are the future of media. You are literally the media right now. Don't worry about the future, worry about right now. Just do media, okay? Do media. Thank you, everyone.